Yes.
Where
Yeah.
you know they grind
Yeah,
the
I've
corn.
heard that before.
So this boy was working for a company at the grinding mill, and he would drive the truck to go around and pick up, you know, the corn like from my father that was in the barn.
Yeah.
And take it to the mill.
To the gin.
And go to the gin, and they would grind some that we got cornmeal
Right.
from it, and then my father was able to sell some.
Mm.
And so I don't know. It was about 9 years after he came there that day and saw me piecing together this quilt.
Right.
And he asked me what was I doing, and I said, I'm quilting. He said, what you quilting for? You know, he knew about quilting because that's what all the women, you know, did.
Yeah.
Like during the winter, the men, they would still have to go in the woods and cut wood, cut trees down for putting aside for the cured tobacco the next season.
Right.
And, you know, things like that. The men still worked out during the winter. And they swab, what they call swab, were cutting down the bushes around the edges of the field and on the ditch banks.
Yeah.
You know. But the women in the winter, they just kept house, and that's when they started quilting and baking and canning. In the garden, we used to raise beans and peas, and we had a tree or two, a peach tree, apple tree, and all such as that. And my mother, we used to plant beans and peas and all like that in our garden that we would eat during the summer.
Yeah.
And then she would leave some out there to let them dry in the pod. And we would, before, you know, the hard winter came, we would go and pick those out, the dried one off. Mm-hmm. And we'd put them in a burlap bag, and she would hang them up around the porch or somewhere. And then when the winter comes, one day she wanted to cook peas or beans.
Right.
We would take a hole or stick or something, and we would beat the beans, you know, in that bag.
Yeah.
Then we take it out, and we had a little pot that we would scoop them up out of there and hold them up like this and be a sheet on the ground. So when the wind blew, the wind would blow all the shell away because they'd be dried out.
Oh.
And the peas would fall down on the sheet.
So you didn't have to shell them?
No.
They just came right out?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And so we ate fresh green beans and peas and all like that during the summer. But then my mother would plant some in the field or somewhere else and let them stay out there till they dry.
Right.
And that's what we have for the winter.
So it was like naturally drying them, but then the peas were preserved inside the pod.
Yeah.
Cool. So, but how did you end up moving from Fountain to Norwalk?
Before this same guy, about 9 years after, he asked me what was I quilting for.
Yes.
And I said for the two of us, which I was teasing with him. Because we went to school now every day. Coming from school, he used to tease me because, and we used to tease him because he wouldn't walk on the side of the road. He always walked over near the ditch. And he'd just be looking for frogs and things and all. We used to call him Frog Boy.
Right, right. Oh, I remember this story.
Yes. Yeah, and so, you know, we were just a friend, like. And I really don't exactly know how we kind of started to liking one another. But as I know, from the first time I gave him a date, we had what we call a barbecue at the barn where we used to do tobacco.
Right.
And so we had hot dogs and marshmallows and such as that and all like that. And so he kept asking me for a dance. And so I danced with him. And we started talking, and so he said, can I come and walk the town with you on some Saturdays and go to the movie? And I said, oh, what do you think we want you to go with us to the movie for? And so he said, but she has sisters too.
Were you playing hard to get?
I guess so. And so he has sisters too, but they was older.
Right.
And so it kept on. So finally, I don't know exactly how we really got together, but we started liking each other.
Yeah.
And so he lived in a little town. They moved from out in the country to the town that we used to go to. So I know how it all started. So as I said, we used to get together, me and 3 other girls that lived down around the farm, and we walked to town, which was about 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
And so if we had money, we would go to the movie. And so that's the way I started with him. You know, we used to go to the movie on Saturday and sit in there and kiss. When before time it started getting dark, then my father would come and he'd pick us up, you know, bring us back. My stepfather then at the time. And so we really started from that liking one another by going to the movie, you know, on Saturdays. And by him living in town, and after the crops was in, because the people that lived in town, they would come out and help on the farms, you know, but you had to pay them.
Right.
But that's the way, you know, they did the living. And so he left because he couldn't get any work to do.
Right.
And so he came to Virginia. You heard of them having those farms, potatoes and this and that, but you know, they picked that. So he came to Virginia, and that's what he was doing. They call him season or something.
Migrant farm workers. Yeah. He was a migrant farmer.
Yeah.
Right.
So he came doing that, and so then I had a cousin that left North Carolina, and he had a brother that lived here in Connecticut.
Okay.
So he saw Charles once, and he said, man, you should come to Connecticut, you know, get you a good job, paying you good money.
Right.
So he came, and so 2 times he came back to Fountain, and he kept saying to me, you know, why don't you come to Connecticut and get you a good job, you know? So, I don't know, you ever remember the hat corporation that was here?
No, but I've read a bit about the history of Norwalk, so I know about it, right?
So my husband worked there, and he was a hat trencher. They call it, you know, that you dip the felt hats in this real hot water, and you had a mold to put it on.
Right.
And then he had a piece of steel wool, like something that you had to keep rubbing around to smooth them down and shape them.
Now please tell me you married this lovely man that came back to Fountain and said, this is your husband.
So the second time he came back, and he says, he said, why don't you marry me and come back to Connecticut and get you a good job? And I said, you gotta be crazy. And so, I don't know, I got so upset with my stepfather about how this man was cheating him. And so I said, well, if you don't make nothing this year, I'm leaving. So my stepfather told my mother, said, oh, she's not gonna stay, so she'll be back. So Charles sent me money. I'd never been to New York. I had never been out of, you know, the area where we live.
Yeah.
So my uncle took me to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and I got the bus. And I came.
When? What year was that?
1960.
1960.
So, My stepfather had 3 sisters living in Long Island.